Welcome to the Executive Coaching Podcast, where executive coach Alicia Cowan will discuss leadership topics and coaching solutions to tackle the most difficult problems that keep you from leading your team to success.
Hey there, senior leaders. It's Alicia Cowan. Welcome to episode 77 of the Executive Coaching Podcast. So it is Halloween week as I record this, and we are going to have a ton of kids' friends over to trick or treat this weekend, and really looking forward to having them over and having a good time. And I cannot believe it. We're looking at Thanksgiving just under a month away. And we already started talking this past weekend about putting up the Christmas trees and Christmas decorations, like right after Halloween ends. So be on the lookout for that. What that means is we are rounding out Q4. So as I always like to give an update, what's happening around the Cowan house, I like to transition as we talk about what's happening in your world as a senior executive leader. And Q4 means we're in the final stretch of the year. And what that looks like for you, and we're thinking about everything that this season entails, it means we are in the year-end wrap-up. So we are in the final push of just the last few weeks and days before we end the calendar year, which means we are like in the final stretch of driving towards whatever results and whatever projects we need to clean up, wrap up, finish for this calendar year. It also means we're typically wrapping up the budget or planning ahead in terms of projects and budgeting and everything for the next calendar year. It also means we're looking at sometimes performance reviews. If you are someone that's on a calendar year cycle for performance, you're potentially writing reviews, you're calibrating, you're looking at merit increases, potentially promotions for the end of the year, and you're looking at how the year ended up. What the results look like, how you met or didn't meet whatever goals you had, and all the reporting of all of those results. So there's a lot in there. And a lot of the communication that you're having to do is all about managing up. It's about speaking up, potentially, most likely to your boss or a leadership team or the board, or potentially to your colleagues in some of the larger team meetings. Maybe it's giving messaging to the organization. So today we're going to dive into that. We're going to dive into some of the trickiest and most powerful skills that we have as executive leaders, managing up. So let's talk about it. We want to talk about how do you speak up and have executive presence and lead with that confidence, and at the same time, be collaborative and partner effectively with your boss, with your colleagues, all while maintaining that sense of composure. Because here's the truth about it. The way that you show up when you speak up and manage up determines really how seriously people are going to take you and your ideas. So if managing up makes you a little bit uncomfortable, that is a good thing, because the discomfort is that price of leadership growth. It means that the discomfort means you care. It means you want to show up in a great way. And it's also what you're going to exchange for your growth. Remember, this is the currency. This is the stuff that we're going to trade for that leadership. So that's what we're going to do today. That's what we're going to do. We're going to go there. I've heard from you frequently, and some of you more recently, about this conversation. And this is how it comes up, is that you're talking about speaking up and managing up. So let's talk about why managing up even matters, why it's important. So I'm going to say this right from the jump. Managing up is not the equivalent of brown nosing and sucking up. It's actually the opposite. It's leadership. It's leadership in motion, in action. And so as a leader, you are responsible for giving context, not just taking direction. So not just taking that top-down communication and running with it. You also have to provide insight. People are going to look to you for your take on things. And I hear from some people, and they want to just put their head down, run in the background and kind of just get results. But I'll say this, when you stay silent and you just put your head down and work, that silence doesn't necessarily protect you. It actually limits your influence. And I've talked to, again, some leaders recently that found themselves like rising to the level that they're at, and they're realizing that they have to use their voice, and they're trying to find their own voice when they get to that next level. And that speaking up in a strategic way, it positions you more as a partner and not as a passenger on this like corporate train. And so executive presence means balancing this confidence as you have as an executive with that humility and showing some conviction and openness. So a lot of times I think people are leaning too much on the humility side. And again, nothing wrong with being humble. Let me be very clear there. But that combination of confidence and conviction combined with the humility can be really, really powerful. And so that's why it matters. You're not just an order taker when you get to this executive level. You are someone that has insight for different levels of the organization, and it's your responsibility to speak up and use your voice to have a point of view. And so what do you need to do first? You have to start with the relationships. So the foundation of all of this influence is that ability to build the relationships. And so presence without that connection, it can feel like performance or performative. And so you have to start by understanding your leader. So, thinking about questions like what drives them and what pressures are they under right now? And how do they like to receive this information? And so if you don't already know that and have that, it's really important to build. And again, some of you that I've talked to out there, you've been with your companies for many years and you know the answer to these questions. Some of you have taken on new leadership roles. And even if you're with the same company, you might be reporting to somebody different, or some of you also have reported to someone new at a new company. So you really have to find that right balance of building that trust before you need to use it. And when you manage up from this place of having built the relationship and not just being reactive, that's when your executive presence and your confidence can feel way more grounded and it feels less forced. So here is your takeaway. As your coach, influence is going to flow through your relationships, not just from a place of authority. Now, if you're in a place, again, where you're new in position, you're new in the company, that's okay. You build this over time. It's not flipping a switch. You can still manage up without having years and years of that relationship. That's okay. But just know that while you're doing these things in parallel, that building those relationships are going to be equally as important as what you say when you speak up. All right, so let's talk about reasons why we don't speak up and what holds us back. Won't be any surprise here, because I talk a lot about this from a mindset and a mentality standpoint, but a lot of what happens to us is the survival instinct kicks in. When we go to speak up, the survival instinct of the fight or flight response can bubble up within us and be totally normal. Why? Again, we as a human species, we survive with a pack of group of people. So the survival instinct to stay in good standing with the group and the majority is instinctual. When we step out and we speak up, it basically means that we are going against maybe what the communal thought process, or what we think the communal thought process is. And the fear and anxiety can really kick into us and really make us feel nervous, a little bit anxious. And that's totally normal. So I want to remind you that when this kicks in, nothing is going wrong. Our brain is just telling us, stay safe, don't rock the boat, don't speak up. But you have to remind it to be okay, hear you, but we're going to speak up anyway. We're not in any life-ending danger here. So that executive presence moment for you is to move through that fear that you're feeling and speak up anyway. And that courage that you're looking for as an executive is not the absence of the fear. It's actually your ability to move through the fear while you're staying composed and calm. So executive presence is not about being fearless. It's actually about being super steady in the moment and moving through it. So, as we've talked through the coaching lens and in many of these podcasts before, but it's your first time listening, your thought about what you're feeling, your thought about, or what the situation that you're in is creating that feeling, which is going to drive your actions. So if your thought is, when you're thinking about maybe speaking up or managing up to your bosses, they're going to think that I'm challenging them, then your feeling might be anxiety or anxious, and then your actions would be maybe to pull back or to not speak up or to stay quiet. If your thought, as an option to you, is to use the thought, my perspective will help us make better decisions, your feeling could be one of confidence, and then your action could be then to speak up and contribute. So a reminder, managing up, showing executive presence starts within your mind and your thought process, not your actions in the meeting room, okay? It's always going to start with that thought that you're thinking, the feeling you're feeling, and then the action that comes out as a result. So I implore you, if you want to self-coach on this, choose thoughts that generate the calm authority, not a defensiveness, or maybe not fear-based. So again, doing a thought audit and seeing what you're thinking before you speak up. Now, let's work through a couple of skill building tactics that we can use. So how do you learn the skill and look like you've got executive presence while you're doing it? So step one is just very simple, and you start with curiosity. So presence can look like active listening with a couple of powerful, thoughtful questions. And, questions like, tell me more about that, or help me understand your perspective and give me a little bit more detail. What it does signal to the other person on the other end of that is collaboration. It's not confrontational. Number two, you want to speak clearly and with brevity. Executive presence is concise. It's knowing what truly matters and getting to the point clearly with as few words as possible without overselling. Number three, you want to regulate and not react. So again, if tension starts to rise within you, not necessarily the conversation, but you can feel your tone starting to change, you can feel your body language, and it feels like it's starting to, your body language and that tone is starting to speak louder than your words are, and you can start to feel it. Maybe it's sweaty palms, maybe it's your throat starting to tighten up, or your chest, you can feel it, or in your gut. All you have to do in that moment is not react. You can just pause there for a second. You can take a couple of really deep breaths, and then you can decide when to respond from that place of intention. And it doesn't have to be this big moment. I think a lot of people think they need to walk away from the conversation and come back to it. And sometimes that can be really helpful. But I think sometimes when we just recognize within ourselves and we take a couple of deep breaths and we see ourselves almost like from floating above yourself and looking down, to see yourself reacting in the moment and just catching it with awareness, it can really be powerful to help you regulate. All right, step 4 here, then once you're in a smaller bit of calmer place, you can just detach from the outcome. What that means is if you're in your true executive presence, you can be unhooked from approval, meaning you separate yourself from needing someone to approve of whatever it is you're saying. Meaning you don't need everybody to agree with you to still have influence. You can have a differentiating opinion without needing to control other people in the room, without needing to people please or be liked. And so at that point, you just detach from whatever outcome it is that you're looking for. The last step in this is just to evaluate how it went and iterate from there. After each time you have a managing up moment, you can reflect. How did that go? What worked? What didn't work? What did I make it mean? And then from there, your executive presence can grow from that self-awareness that you're creating within yourself. Okay. Let's move on to a more advanced layer, and then let's talk about how to thoughtfully dissent. Executive presence, again, doesn't always mean that we're agreeable. Actually, I would say and argue it's the opposite. Not that we're disagreeable, but executive presence means being anchored. And thoughtfully dissenting, maybe we don't see eye to eye, it shows you can think strategically and you can challenge very respectfully. That's the key. You can disagree and you can still be aligned. You can hold that level of tension with composure. And that's when you know you've got this high level of executive presence in action. And the most influential leaders can balance that. They can balance a level of diplomacy matched with honesty. Now, and here's the trick with that. You've got to go back to that thought of not being confrontational, but maybe being confident in stating your opinion and not coming across disagreeable. That's where that matching with that self-regulation comes into play. Okay. So a little bit more advanced, but let's think through lastly, a couple of self-coaching prompts to help you as you prepare to maybe go into some of these conversations that might help you with some of the thoughts. So some self-coaching prompts could sound like this. What am I thinking before I go into that conversation? How does that thought, whatever it is that you're thinking, however you answer that first question, how does that thought make me feel? Do I feel grounded, confident, or am I feeling defensive or frustrated, right? And then notice if that thought is one you want to keep or cut. And then how do I want to show up energetically? Again, you get to decide. And how might this be a chance to practice my executive presence and not perfection, right? That's not the goal here. It's how do I get a chance to move through whatever it is that I'm feeling and go for it, knowing there's no place that it will end up in perfection. That's just not a thing. That's not possible. Okay. All right. So hopefully this is helpful. I know that you have a ton of end of year conversations that you need to have. So use these prompts, think about how you want to feel, think about what you want to think. And then I would love to know how it goes and how you show up. Managing up is absolutely one of the most viable, visible tests of your executive presence. And it's so important. It's not just what you say. It is absolutely how you say it and who you're going to be while you do it. So remember, build this relationship through the end of the year. Manage your mind through the end of the year and practice that pause if you want to emotionally regulate. And the more you show up with steady, confident energy over and over again, the more other people are going to be trusting you and trusting your voice. And my last closing thought is that this discomfort that you're feeling about managing up, it truly is that discomfort of leadership growth. So spend that wisely. Think through it. And if this topic hits close to home, and you know your next level of leadership depends on your ability to manage up with executive presence and confidence, I would love to coach you through it. We are working through these exact type of situations in my one-on-one coaching program with leaders just like you. I promise you are not alone in this. So if you need some support with this, do not hesitate to reach out to me. You can reach out to me on my website. It's EliciaKowen.com. It's ElisiaKeown coaching.com. Reach out to me, schedule a call. We can talk about what the coaching process looks like. If it is something that is the right fit for you, and if anything, you will walk away with a great, amazing coaching session. I hope you are in the best way possible, having the best fall season ever. I am so thankful for you for listening as always, and we will talk to you soon. See you next time, friends. Bye.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Executive Coaching Podcast with Alicia Cowen. If you're ready to have an executive coach who's ready to help you lead your team to success, then book an introductory call at aliciacowencoaching.com/call.